All of that is to say that, like, yeah, we totally fucked up here with like security stuff on this account. What I will say to start with is that like the way the Magic Find formula works in PoE 2 is literally identical to how it was in PoE 1 as far as diminishing returns and everything is concerned. The difference is just down to
What's up, PoE 2 fans? Between the various announcement posts, the video that GGG released on YouTube, and the 2.5 hour long video that just got posted on Twitch, there's been a lot of announcements over the last couple days. And in this video, I thought I would just shrink everything down and summarize the most important points and takeaways from the recent announcements and videos that were just posted. All right, let's start with the fact that GGG was in fact kind of sort of hacked. It was one administrator who got their account hacked. It was through Steam. As you can see, there was tons of people making videos about this recently. Hacking situation is crazy. My account got hacked. So did many others. Huge ongoing hack wave. Actually, DS Lily just put this out a few minutes ago about the account hack. So lots of people making videos about the recent news. This person even, PoE2, is it possible hackers are using friend invites? Well, it doesn't look like it. I even watched a video saying don't trade with anybody. It looks like there's some kind of cookie issue with trading or something, which sounded totally ridiculous. And yet I stopped trading. Well, I don't think we really need to worry about this anymore unless people still report huge waves of hacks, which is probably not going to happen. I think it's safe to stop worrying about this. Here's GGG's exact words on the extent of the issue.
Is that 66 notes were deleted. So that would imply that 66 accounts were compromised.
So their stance is that probably it was about 66 accounts that got hit by this particular hack. Now, this sounds like way less than what people were reporting. And, you know, it's always possible that people were just doing things they shouldn't have been doing. You know, there's people that do RMT. There's people that do things they shouldn't do and they get hacked. Sometimes people actually do get hacked. Given that GGG stance is that about 60 accounts got hacked and they figured out exactly what happened and why, it was because one particular administrator got compromised, and they've reset all the admin passwords and added two-factor authentication to all of the admins who have access to this type of account manipulation. I'm going to go ahead and call this case closed and I'm going to move on. I'm going to start trading again. I'm not going to worry about this anymore until I hear anything else further. And I think you're safe to do the same. All right, next up is Increased Item Rarity. It's a stat on gear that people were going as far as to say is the biggest problem of the game, maybe even ruining the game. You know, Gazzy TV himself, who was conducting this interview, reacted to Zizarin, who made a video on it where they were talking about rarity being too strong. I can't remember exactly what Gazzy's take was, but like if you go back, for example, to the original video that Zizarin, who's like probably the biggest person in the PoE community on YouTube, you know, he put out this whole video on how Increased Item Rarity was a huge problem in PoE 2. In the background, I've been working on a video talking about the increased item rarity situation where I was basically going to say that if you look at the actual data, it looks like it's exactly the same as it was in PoE 1, which nobody ever complained about and said it was the death of the game. Now, I've been watching Zizarin off and on for like 10 years, so I'm not going to say anything too crazy right now. All I'm going to say is, in this particular instance, I'm disappointed. And you know, one of the pieces of evidence was like literally one person's haul from one map that they did with some increased rarity. And they also had a lot of rarity on the map as well. Okay, meanwhile, in other areas of YouTube, we had YouTubers like Slippery Jim who did like 1 million maps. And we also had another YouTuber, maybe it's called My Dear. So we had My Dear YouTuber over here also doing tons of maps. And they were all gathering data and showing the results of how much it increased, like, for example, exalted drops, gold drops, and things like that. And everything pointed to the system being literally exactly the same as and identical as it was in PoE 1, which nobody ever complained about and said it was the death of the game. So let's see what GGG had to say about this.
Well, what I will say to start with is that like the way the Magic Find formula works in PoE 2 is literally identical to how it was in PoE 1 as far as diminishing returns and everything is concerned. The difference is just down to what rarity is giving you as opposed to what it was giving you in PoE 1. Our argument for why Magic Find should be fine in PoE 2 is effectively like we're not doing what happened in PoE 1 where you got like all these quantity mods and all that sort of stuff like that. Like it's effectively the Magic Find in PoE 2 is what PoE 1 had back when PoE 1 was first released, right? Where it was kind of like, and it kind of was fine then. So the argument was, well, why shouldn't it not be fine now?
All right, and so that's pretty much all there is to it. In the end, this whole story is probably just gonna disappear like a fart in the wind, and probably people aren't going to really talk about it again. But let me just add one more point, just in case there's anybody here who's not exactly sure what's going on with this and doesn't really understand. Somebody named Poor Fishwife linked to this example graph from PoE 1. I think it's safe to say that the way that increased item rarity works in PoE 2 is probably somewhat similar to this graph. So here's the graph that they posted. And what this is showing is, now this is a little outdated because of what the changes made to increased item quantity, aka getting rid of it in PoE 1. Let's just make an assumption and say this is exactly how it works in PoE 2. Then basically what this is saying is if you increase your increased item rarity by like 50%, you're not actually getting 50% better loot, you're actually getting less than that. Let's say you've got 100% increased item rarity and you go up, not even close to 100% better drops. You're kind of stuck down here more around like 50% better. And basically the more and more you increase, now let's go to 200% increased, and now you're still not even close to what would be the equivalent of like 100% increase. So what GGG does, I actually don't really like this because the gear is basically lying to you. That's one thing I actually hate about this whole system. I don't think the gear should say 50% increased item rarity if you don't actually get 50% increased item rarity. In fact, I have some solutions I could propose, but nobody really cares, probably. But you could adjust the gear to actually somehow show the fact that it's not really doing what it says it does on the gear. And so basically, the more and more you increase, eventually you just kind of level off and you don't really get any more gains after you get to like 200, 250% increase, 300% increased. Now, we won't know exactly how it works in PoE 2, given that the systems are a little different. I know GGG is saying it works exactly the same as in PoE 1. I think they might be simplifying it just a little bit, but it probably works something like this, and we'll get more data and we'll figure out exactly how it works. And I'll probably even put out a video talking about a theory of like a sweet spot, like an area where you should aim. It's probably going to be between 100% to 200% increased item rarity. Actually, if there's anybody here who's interested in that, I've been kind of coming up with that video right now. So feel free to hit me with a subscribe if you want to catch that video in the future. I'm going to try to actually put out recommendations for sweet spot values of increased item rarity for your character. While I'm on that note, I just want to say one thing. A lot of people are putting out this like, panic videos, PoE 2 is dead, increased item rarity is a huge problem. And then I showed you those other videos about the hacking. And we looked through these videos about how everybody's getting hacked in PoE 2, which ended up probably being totally fabricated. This is my last shill I'm going to make in this video, y'all. I've never made a totally fabricated story about something killing PoE 2, something killing Path of Exile. It's going to be the end of Path of Exile. As far as I know, I've never lied in a video or put out anything untrue or tried to fabricate some crazy story. And again, as this was going on, I've actually been working on a video about increased item rarity where I'm going to give you the actual data, and I was going to kind of show how all this stuff was totally misleading based on actual data. And so if you want to support that, I'm just going to say it one last time. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. Hit this video with a like if you support that kind of content and you want to show me. All right, we now wrap up this video with a rapid fire lightning round of a bunch of other changes that were included between the official GGG video and minor points in the 2.5-hour podcast. Maps, overall going to be more rewarding, more monsters, magics, rares, essences, all sorts of things like that. Overall more rewarding. They're changing up the towers. The towers were kind of boring and had other little issues with monsters getting packed up into rooms that you can't see what's inside. There's going to be more areas. Okay, another thing going on behind the scenes, they are looking into melee. There's been people complaining about the melee power level. They expect to be bringing it up, especially in things like maces. Armor is going to be looked into. Another random point, charms. There's some minor issues. For example, some of the things that slow down your character weren't correctly activating the slow charm, which will be fixed. A couple things with map bosses. They're adding a new tablet that'll add bosses to maps. In the video example, it added like 7 more bosses. And there was also an oversight that was made where they weren't getting enough bosses to spawn, so there's also going to be just overall more bosses spawning. Strong boxes are getting a little tune-up to make them better, like faster spawning monsters, less fog. Various issues relating to visibility of different effects and things like that is being addressed. Lots of tiny little quality of life details like zooming out in the atlas, faster loading times, and things that aren't necessarily even worth me mentioning at this point. Small quality of life things, you'll notice it whenever you're playing the game, and you can see it in the patch notes. For different leagues, so for example, for Delirium, we're going to be getting more simulacrum spawns and less bugs. Expedition is going to potentially get a large rework, but for now, they're just going to make certain things more rewarding. There's going to be more omens for rituals. And here's an absolutely huge change. In addition to citadels being closer and easier to find with the little beams above them, we are going to now be able to challenge bosses at certain different levels and things. We'll get the exact details soon, but you're going to get to use the full 6 portals. And it sounds like as the difficulty goes up, maybe at the highest level, you'll only get to use like 1 portal. So you actually get to practice on these things a little bit. Depending on the difficulty of making that change, some bosses are going to get it now, some are going to get it in the future. They're also going to make some little number tweaks on at least one boss, change the difficulty. Next, we've got a bunch of uniques are getting updates, and it sounds like they're all pretty much going to be made more powerful, more or less, because some of them were just, as we probably all know, a little bit underwhelming whenever you find them. Okay, this one's huge. Don't worry about the runes making the item stuck in a certain state. They are changing the rune system. You are going to be able to swap runes in and out. Thank God, I'm sure we all wanted that. And then a whole bunch of different boss monster and regular monster damage numbers, visuals, signaling, things like that are going to be getting tweaked. Item filters are coming to consoles by way of sort of like subscribing to them through the website. This was something we had in PoE 1, and this is now going to be in PoE 2, so console players can actually get those. I actually made a video on GeForce Now. If you do cloud gaming on PC, you also can't get item filters. This should also fix that for people doing cloud gaming, which is pretty awesome. Okay, rapid firing and more small changes. Charms are going to get updates. You're going to be able to see charms trigger. You're going to be able to see the amount of charges left on charms. Gazzy asked a bunch of questions about minions. You know, he's a big minion player. There's going to be lots of fixes coming in. For example, there was just some bugs with slowing characters down, slows your minions, and other real specific changes. They're incoming. Atlas searching is coming. You're going to be able to do searching. The bird ultimatum boss is going to get changed. It was too strong. We're likely going to be able to salvage quality flasks soon to get baubles out of them. All quest rewards should be able to be changed. Apparently there's one that you can't change right now that's permanent. Should be able to change it. Ascendancies, probably still fixed for the time being, but I'm going to go ahead and call it right now. I have a feeling we're going to be able to swap out our Ascendancy in the future, but that day is not coming today. All right, y'all, that's it. Let me know what you think about this style of video. I haven't made one quite like this before, so let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.